Hello guys, welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we will be concentrating on Taylor series. For the past two lectures, we have been concentrating on Taylor series. Initially, we formulated a recursive formula for implementing Taylor series, and we found it to be of time complexity order of n square. So, and also we found in the later session that the reason for the n square time complexity is the more number of multiplication that is taking place. Nearly n square multiplication have been taken. That is what the main reason of the time complexity n square. So in order to achieve efficiency, in order to optimize the existing method, we have introduced one more optimization way in which we reduce the number of multiplication. Okay, so automatically our time complexity becomes order of n. Order of n. So if you just look at the first method, the total number of multiplication that is taken when you call e of 2 comma 4, when the x value is 2, n value is 4, the total number of multiplication that took place is 2 plus 4 plus 8, totally 14 multiplication took place. In the first optimization method, totally 8 multiplication took place. Now we are going to reduce that 8 multiplication to 4 multiplication. That is what we are going to look in the optimization method 2. Optimization method 2 is much more better than the method 1 optimization. Okay, so we took Taylor series, we saw one method, it is proven to be order of n square time complexity. Then we saw an alternate method wherein we have reduced the time complexity from order of n square to order of n. Now in this lecture, I'll be introducing you to one more optimized way wherein again we are going to reduce the time complexity. Okay, then this optimization method, completely the multiplication is reduced. We will just uh, see about these things in detail in this lecture. Okay, so before we get into the problem, previous class what we stopped is that we stopped with the implementation of the Taylor series, the second implementation. In the second implementation, we introduced two static variable called p1, f1. Okay, and we did a different methodology. Instead of calling power function and fact function every time, we just simply multiplied x with the previous power value and we multiplied n with the existing factorial value to reduce the multiplication, number of multiplication taking place. Okay, fine. Now I'm going to introduce you to the second optimized way. Okay, so first of all, before getting into second optimized way, we should get a clear overview. First of all, I'll explain you the idea behind it. I'll explain you about the idea behind this. This optimized way, I'm going to follow a rule called Horner's rule. We are going to follow a rule called Horner's rule. Okay, so we are going to see about optimization method 2. Optimization method 2. And this optimization method 2 is using Horner's rule. Is using Horner's rule. Okay, what is Horner's rule? We will get to know about it. Okay, so first of all, what we will do is we will just expand it. Okay, we will just expand the a given for example, we will take e of 2 power 4 and we will expand it, and then we will see what is Horner's rule. So already what we have is we have the expansion of e of x comma 4. Okay, so I'll just take the same expansion of e of x comma 4 actually. So what I will just simply do is, one minute guys. Yeah. What I will simply do is, uh, rather than one minute. Okay. So rather than doing x multiplied by x, x multiplied by x by x, x multiplied by x, let us change this into x square divided by 2 into 1. Okay. Then this is x cube, x cube divided by 3 into 2 into 1. Okay, fine. This is x power 4, x power 4 divided by 4 into 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. So this is the expansion of e of x comma 4. Now what we are going to do is using harness rule. Using harness rule, first of all, let me omit this term called 1 and let me only concentrate on these terms alone. X divided by 1, x square divided by 2 multiplied by 1, x cube divided by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1, x power 4 divided by 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. What we are going to do is we are going to take a common term outside this equation. What common term we are going to take? X divided by 1, we are going to take it common outside. X divided by 1, we are going to take common outside. Suppose if we take x divided by 1 common outside, let us check what will happen. Okay. So what we will do is, I'll just take the existing equation again. I'll take the existing equation again. Now if you see, if I take x divided by 1 common, okay, let me tell you one thing. If I take x divided by 1 common, then what will happen? If I take x divided by 1 common, then I'll just create a bracket. Okay, I'll just show you from scratch. Okay, okay, fine. So 1 plus, now what I'm going to do is we are going to take x divided by 1 common. Okay, so when I'm taking x divided by 1 common, x divided by 1 is common. So when x divided by 1 is taken common outside, then draw a bracket. Let me draw a bracket and let me write the remaining terms inside the bracket, because we are taking x divided by 1 common. Whenever you take some term common outside, then what you will do, you will write the remaining part inside a bracket for the better understanding. Okay, so now I have introduced a bracket, so now we can just start writing. If x divided by 1 is taken common outside, what this term will become? This term will become 1, because when you're taking x divided by 1 from this term, remaining part is only 1. Because when you take x divided by 1, only remaining part is 1, no other part is there. So the first part will be definitely 1. First part will be definitely 1. Okay, fine. What will be the second part? The second part will be this x square divided by 2 power 1. When x divided by 1 is taken common, so when x is taken from this term, remaining one x will be there. X multiplied by x is equal to x square. So when one x is taken outside, you will have remaining one more x. Can you able to understand? This is generally called as x multiplied by x square. When you take one x outside, then you will have remaining one x here. So by taking, so I can write x, one x is pending, divided by, okay, it is going to be divided by x divided by, what is the next term? If you see this denominator, you are taking 1 outside. So when you are taking 1 outside, this 1 will be moved, but you will be having the remaining 2. 1 is taken outside, remaining you will be having 2. So this term is called as x divided by 2. So whenever you are you are taking x divided by 1 common outside, when you take x divided by 1 common outside from this term, you will have remaining x by 2, which I have written here. Okay, fine. So now let us concentrate on the next term, plus. Let us concentrate on the next term. Okay. When you take x outside from this term, what will happen? You will have x square remaining, because this can be rewritten as x multiplied by x multiplied by x. When you are taking one x outside, you will be having two more x there. So where x multiplied by x is x square. So what is the next term? The next term is x square divided by x square divided by, and look at the denominator. What is what we are taking outside? We are taking 1 outside. When you take 1 outside, what is the remaining thing? 2 into 3 is remaining. 2 into 3. So we can write 3 multiplied by 2 is here. 3 multiplied by 2. Okay, so when you are taking only 1 outside in the denominator. Okay, so according to this term, the pending term is, according to this, when you're taking x divided by 1 common outside, the pending term is x square divided by 3 multiplied by 2, which I have written here. Coming to the very last term, coming to the last term, if you are taking x common outside from x power 4, you'll be having remaining x cube. Okay, x cube. What is the denominator? I think from the denominator we are only taking, from the denominator we are only taking 1. So what is going to be the remaining part? The remaining part is going to be 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. Okay, going to be 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 1. So when I take x divided by 1 common outside, when I take x divided by 1 common outside, then this the internal term becomes 1 plus 1 plus x square, x divided by 2 plus x square divided by 3 multiplied by 2 plus x power 3 divided by 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2. 1 is not going to do any changes, but for your better understanding, I'm writing like this. Okay, fine. So now what we are going to do, again, this is not only the Harness rule. Harness rule means again taking a common term outside. What common term? From this term, leave 1. See, in the original equation you left 1, and in the remaining terms you took x divided by 1 common outside. Now in this inner term, leave 1 aside and take the remaining parts and take x divided by divided by 2 common outside. X divided by 2 common outside. Okay, so what we are going to do is, what we will be doing is, I'll just take the entire equation again. I'll take the entire equation again. But one thing is, in this internal term is going to be different. This internal terms are going to be different. Okay, so let me take it out and we can just start it from scratch. Okay, fine. Now, what you're going to do, this one will remain, okay, remain the same. One will remain same. One will remain same. And what I'll do, we are going to take x divided by 2 common outside from these three terms. So x, okay, x divided by 2 is taken common outside. Okay, x divided by 2 is taken common outside. Now what you have to do, we are going to write a one more brackets. We are going to write one more brackets. Okay, fine. So now inside this bracket, what we are going to do is, when I take x divided by 2 common outside from these three terms, if I take x divided by 2, what will happen? When I take x aside, when I take x from x outside, only one x is there already. When I take that x outside, I'll be having only 1, divided by denominator. Only 2 is there. And if I take that 2 outside, I'll be having 1. So 1 divided by 1 is equal to 1. So 1 plus what is second term? X square divided by 3 multiplied by 2. So when I take x outside x square, what will happen? The remaining term is going to be x. The remaining term is going to be x. Okay, fine. Okay, remaining term is going to be x. What is going to be the denominator? Denominator is 3 multiplied by 2, from which I have taken 2 outside. So remaining term is going to be 3. So this term is completely going to be x divided by 3. Okay, fine. Now what is going to be the next term? Next term is x cube. Next term is x cube, and so plus x. When you take x outside from x cube, what it will be? X square divided by, look at the denominator. Look at the denominator. What is the denominator? Denominator is 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2. So when you take 2 outside from 4 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2, remaining what you will be having is 4 multiplied by 3. We'll be having 4 multiplied by 3 we will be having. Okay, fine. Okay, so that's it coming to this internal terms. Okay, 1 minute. So now, according to Horner's rule, what we are doing, we are taking common terms outside. This is what Horner's rule is mainly of. Okay, it's a mathematical rule. So now we are not going to stop it here. Initially, I took this, I just simply retained 1, and in the remaining terms, I took x divided by 1 common outside, and I get a new equation, internal equation. Now in this internal equation, I kept my 1 aside, and I took the remaining terms and I took x divided by 2 common outside. Now I get a new internal term now, internal equation. Now among this internal equation, I'm going to keep 1 aside, and I'll be taking a common term outside from this remaining 2 terms. What is a common term I'm going to take? X divided by 3 is a common term I'm going to take outside. So before that, I'll just copy the existing equation. I'll just copy down the external existing equation. Okay. So now if you see in this internal term, we are going to do, see, these two terms are going to be different. Okay. These two terms are going to be different. So let me remove these two terms. I'm going to keep 1 aside, and from the remaining terms, I'm going to take x divided by 3 common outside. So x divided by 3 I have taken common outside. When I take x divided by 3 common outside, let me open a new bracket. Okay, fine. So now in this bracket, when you take x divided by 3 common outside from these two terms, first of all, when you're taking x outside of this term, what will happen? Remaining part is 1. When you're taking 3 outside this term, the remaining part is 1. So 1 divided by 1 is totally equal to 1. So the very first term is 1. Then plus, when you take x divided by 3 from this term called x square by 4 multiplied by 3, when you're taking x outside x square, you'll be having remaining term x. The remaining term is going to be x. Okay, fine. What about the denominator? The denominator is actually 4 multiplied by 3. When you take 3 outside, you will be having remaining 4. You will be having remaining of 4. Okay, so this is x divided by 4. Is there any other term? No. At this point, we will be stopping because there is no more common terms to take hereafter. There are no more common terms to be taken. So that is the main reason. So now if you look at the last equation, what we are having, see, this is same as the first equation, but only one thing what we have done is we have taken common terms outside. We have taken a lot of common terms outside. Okay, now, so now if you see 1 plus x divided by 1, the whole bracket, it means multiplied by x multiplied 1, x divided by 1 is multiplied with the entire term, and inside if you go 1 plus x divided by 2, then it is multiplied by the entire, both these terms have to be multiplied, then 1 plus x divided by 3, and with this answer this internal have to be multiplied. How many multiplications taking place? 1 plus x divided by 1 multiplied by, here one multiplication will take place, then again 1 plus x divided by 2 multiplied by, again second multiplication, then 1 plus x divided by 3 multiplied by, okay, third multiplication, and final, okay, only 3 multiplications are taking place, no more multiplication. So we have reduced the number of multiplication very much lesser comparing the previous method. If you take the previous method, I think we have a graph here. In the previous method, if you see here, we are performing 2 multiplication for every step. We are performing 2 multiplication for every step. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Totally 8 multiplication took place in the previous method. Now in the current method that I have taught you using Horner's rule, it is only taking 1 plus 1 plus 1. Totally 3 multiplication is taking place manually, I'm speaking. We will implement this and we will check how many multiplications are taking place. That we will see later. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is this formula, I'm going to rewrite this formula, not rewriting. I'm going to represent this formula using a tree for your better understanding. Okay, so if you see here what it is happening, 1 plus x divided by 4. 1 divided by x, 1 plus x divided by 4, 1 plus x divided by 2, 1 plus x divided by 1. Is it look like same? Yes, it looks like same. 1 plus x divided by n, 1 plus x divided by n minus 1, 1 plus x divided by n minus 2, 1 plus x divided by n minus 3. So up to 1 it can reach. When x is equal to 0, we can just stop it. Sorry, n is equal to 0, we can stop it. So this looks a common, everything is similar. Okay, so what we can do is that when your n value is c, what I'm going to simply do is we are going to take a variable called s and I'm going to initialize it to 1 by default. When my n value is equal to 4, I think I can calculate this internal, the deepest internal term I can calculate, which is 1 plus x divided by 4. So when my n value is equal to 4, initially when my n value is equal to 4, I can calculate 1 plus x divided by n, which is x divided by 4. Then I can reduce the n value by, so I can just do 1 plus x divided by 4 and the resultant value I can multiply it with existing s value. So what I can do is s is equal to s multiplied by 1 plus x divided by 4. Okay, now the new s value is different. The new s value is 1 plus x divided by 4. Okay, fine. Now what I have to do, I have to reduce my n value to 3. I'm going to reduce the n value to 3. Okay, fine. So now what we are going to do, s is equal, remember very well, after calculating the equation only I am reducing the value of n. Okay, after calculating the s value only we are reducing the value of n, keep in mind. Okay, now s is equal to s multiplied by, if n value equal to 3, already whatever existing value you have, with that value I think you can multiply 1 plus x divided by 3. So initially you took this value, now you are going to multiply this and this term now. Okay, so now already existing value is s, so s multiplied by 1 divided 1 plus x divided by the present value of n, which is 3. The present value of n, which is 3. Okay, fine. After doing this, what you're going to do, I'm going to reduce the n value to 2. After reducing n value to 2, now what I have to do, now what is the s value? Initially s value was having 1 plus x divided by 4. Then what we did is we multiplied 1 by x divided by 4 with 1 plus x divided by 3. So we have the product of 1 plus x divided by 3 and 1 plus x divided by 4. Now when my n value is equal to existing product value whatever we are having, we are going to multiply a new value called 1 plus x divided by 2. So s is equal to s multiplied by 1 plus x divided by 2. What is 2? Present value of n. After doing this process, we will be reducing our n value to 1, and then we will be again doing the same process. S is equal to s multiplied by 1 plus x divided by 1, whereas 1 is the present value of n. Now when we again reduce n is equal to 0, what will happen? N is equal to 0, you can stop the process and you can return the present value of s, wherein you will be getting the same answer. So 1 plus x divided by 4, then 1 plus x divided by 3, then 1 plus x divided by 2, then plus 1 plus x divided by 1. So all these terms we are multiplying. How much time? 1 2 3, 1 2 3 4, 4 multiplication. Coming into the implementation, if you see, 4 multiplications are taking place. When my n value is 4, 4 multiplication. If my n value is 10, then 10 multiplication. If n value is 20, 20 multiplication. If n value is 10 power 6, then 10 power 6 multiplication will be taking place. So this mechanism, let me represent it using a tree structure. Okay, so if you're coming to this one, so when e of 2 comma 4 is given, what we are going to do, I'll just get rid of this internal parts. First of all, we will get rid of internal parts and we will represent it. Okay, so I asked you to remember one thing. So before reducing the value of n, we are calculating this equation. Before reducing the value of n, we are calculating the equation yes, which means that before recursive call, this calculation should take place. Before calling the recursive function, this calculation should have taken place. Okay, fine. So now what is the first process? By default, for example, we are taking a variable called s and we are going to initialize it to 1. Okay, now I have called 6 of e of 2 comma 4, and when e of 2 comma 4 is called, what we need to do, I should be multiplying s. Okay, I should be multiplying s by 1 plus x divided by present value of n, which is 4. Okay, present value of 4. Okay, hope is it is visible, right? Fine. So s multiplied by 1 plus x divided by 4, and the resultant answer have to be sent back to s itself. So s is equal to s multiplied by 1 plus x divided by 4. Just remember one thing, in the next process, if you see, in the next process, this s value should be a changed value. S should not remain 1, s should be changed. So let me tell you one thing, according to recursion, whenever you are calling a recursive function, new activation area will be created, and in each and every new activation area a new variable will be created. So it's a different copy. But rather than having a different copy, if you want to have a single copy, then what you can do, you can take this variable as a static variable, which I have already taught you. What will happen when you take a variable as a static variable? When you take a variable as a static variable, then there will be only one copy. So in each and every activation area, you will not be creating this static variable called s. So only one copy will be there. So when only one copy is there, whatever changes that you are doing to this s variable will be reflecting in the one copy that we have. Okay, so I think so now this uh, all this links should not, it does not belongs to actually s equal to s, because it is not a recursion call to have a branches. So I'll just get rid of all these things. Okay, fine, including these things. Fine. So now after doing this, s is equal to s multiplied by 1 plus x divided by 4. Now the next thing that I need to do is I have to be recursively calling what? I need to reduce the value of n. That is what we have seen here also. We have to reduce the value of n. Okay, fine. So now what I'm going to do is I'll be calling e of 2 comma 3. I'll be calling e of 2 comma 3. E of 2 comma 3. So reduced value of n. So when you call recursively e of 2 comma 1, what will happen? It will have two branches, one branch on the left side, okay, and you will have one more branch on the right side. Okay, fine. So coming to the, first of all, coming to the left side branch, it will have to calculate s is equal to, what is the existing value of s? I think this is x, means it is 2 divided by 4. Am I right? 2 divided by 4. 2 divided by 4. So it will be around 0. So some calculation will happen. The resultant value will be stored in s. Now s will not be having 1 actually. S will not be having 1. Instead of s having 1, s will be having a new value, which is due to the expression we have given here. S will be having a new value. With that new value, just listen to what I'm saying. With that new value, we are going to multiply uh, s multiplied by 1 plus x, which is 2. X is 2. 2 divided by 3. 2 divided by 3. Okay, why we are doing 2 divided by 3? Because here the new n value is 3, so we are doing 1 plus 2 divided by 3. So coming to the rightmost part, we have to reduce the value of n, which means we will be recursively calling 2 comma 2. Now coming to the left side, I'll be having one branch, and the right side we will be having one more branch. Right side we'll be having one more branch. Okay, fine. Now coming to this term, with the previous newly calculated s value, that's a static variable. That is why I'm telling the previously calculated s value. We will be multiplying 1 plus 2 divided, what is 2? X divided by 2. What is this? Denominator 2. Denominator 2 is a new n value. Okay, after calculating this equation, we should be getting into this, and we will be reducing the value of n, and we will be calling e of 2 comma 1. We'll be calling e of 2 comma 1. Okay, fine. Now coming to the left side branch, we'll be having one left side branch, and we'll be having one right side branch also. Now coming to this left side branch, we should be taking the existing value of s, and we should multiply it with 1 plus x. What is x value? 2 divided by, what is the present n value? 1. So 1 plus x divided by n. So after doing this, what is the next recursion call have to be? N value should be reduced by 1. So 2 comma 1 have to be reduced to 2 comma 0. So when your n value is 0, what you have to do? You have to stop. And what is your present value of s is? The present value of s will be the final value, because you see here, when your n value is 0, when your n value is 0 here, you should have done all this operation, and finally s is a static variable which will be having the final answer. So once your n becomes 0, you can stop the process and you can return your s to the main function. So this is what we are going to do in the implementation part. This is what we are going to do in the implementation part. Okay, fine. So now we will just go to Taylor.c, and we will just start writing one more function called as double. It is going to be, return type is going to be double, and we'll be taking e underscore optimization underscore 2, and e underscore optimization underscore 2 of, we will be taking the same argument called x comma n. All these things are same. Okay, fine. What we have decided, what is the base condition we decided? If n is equal to 0, if n is equal to 0, we planned of returning the final answer. What is the final answer? Final answer we are storing in the variable called s. So first of all, we have to be taking a static variable. We should be taking a static, I think s is going to hold the answer, right? We will be taking a static double variable. We'll be taking a static double variable called as s, because the final answer is going to be a double one. So let us take a double answer. Okay, fine. So now what is the next thing that we are going to do is, when my n, if my n value is equal to 0, then we can return the final answer. The final answer is stored in the variable called s. So first of all, s have to be initialized to 1 by default. Okay. Next, if n is equal to 0, we will be returning the final answer, which is stored in the variable called s. If suppose this condition is evaluated to false, then we will have a else body part, wherein we will have to be doing s is equal to, s is equal to, s is equal to the calculation that we did already. S is equal to s multiplied by 1 plus 1 plus x divided by the present value of n. So this is a common formula that we already have seen about. Okay. So after doing this one, what we have to do? We have to be again calling the same function with the reduced value of n. So we have to be finally returning the same function we are going to call e underscore optimization method 2, and we will be passing x comma n minus 1. Okay, fine. So what we are doing, first branch is s calculation, the second branch is calling the same function with the reduced value of 1. You know very well what will happen when you give return statement. Return statement means whatever value which is whatever value you're generating, that value will be returned back to each and every activation area in previous activation areas. So whatever value that you are calculating in the topmost activation area will be sent to the next activation area using return. Without return, you cannot send data from one activation to another activation area. So for transferring data from one activation to area to another activation area, we are using this statement called return. Okay, so now what we will do is we will just try to check these things. But before checking, if you see, the two numbers that we have sent is a integer numbers. When it's an integer number, then integer divided by integer, definitely answer also will be integer. So to make the answer actually double, either one of the operand have to be in double data type. So we are typecasting the, I'm just typecasting X into double, or otherwise you can change this data type into double. If you directly change the data type to double, automatically double divided by double, you'll be getting a answer also in double. So if you are having integer, even though you have to go with double, then you can do typecasting like this. Okay, so typecasting, we are typecasting an integer value to a double value. So now we will just save this and let me introduce a new variable double, and it is going to be new is equal to e underscore optimization 2, and let us pass x comma n to it. And now we are also going to print the value of new, space percentage lf, then answer optimize, as well as we will be printing new. We will just execute and check whether this is working or not, working properly or not. So first of all, we will set a compilation process. So I'll be calling Taylor.c. Okay, compilation is successful. Now we will go for execution. 7 7, and finally you're getting the answer 15. Okay, fine. Where is a mistake that we have done? Is there any mistake that we have done here? So we will have a look at this. We will have a look at it. So if you observe a small issue here, small issue, I'll just tell you what is the issue actually, with the expression that we have written actually. So if you see here, 1 plus x divided by 4 is not again multiplied with a entire 1 plus x divided by 3. It is just multiplied with x divided by 3. It is just multiplied with x divided by 3, and then it is added with 1. Okay, so multiplication is not common for 1 and x divided by 3, that we should remember. So we should not be writing s is equal to s multiplied by 1 plus x divided by 4, because this s is not, s means this calculated value 1 plus x divided by 4, and this 1 divided by 1 plus x divided by 4 is not common to both your 1 and x divided by 3, whereas it belongs to only x divided by 3. So this s should not be multiplied for both your 1 and x divided by 4. It should be only multiplied for your x divided by 4. Only with this x divided by 4 only you have to be multiplying. Only with this x divided by 3 only you have to be multiplying. So we have written the expression. That is why expression is very important. So in the basic C version, I have taught you about how to go with the expression. So if the precedence is wrong, automatically the entire answer is also wrong. So change this expression. S is not common to both this one and division process. S only belongs to this division process. So multiplied by s, we can give it this place. Now let me save it and let me go with the execution, compilation, and then we'll go for execution. Yes, now we get the right answer for all the three methods that we have. All the three methods we have. Okay, so now we have three methods. First method is of time complexity n square. Second method is of time complexity n. First method has taken 14 multiplication for 2 comma n 4. When the n value is 4, then totally 14 multiplication took place. Now in the second method, okay, sorry, in the first optimization method, totally 8 multiplication took place. Now in this second optimization method, only 4 multiplications are taking place. So we will also calculate the time complexity of the present method that we have seen, and we will conclude the Taylor series section. Okay, right. So looking at this code, I think this can be generally taken as, the function can be generally taken as t of n, because x is not changing. If you just observe here, x is not changing, but n value is changing, n minus 1, n minus 2, n minus 3. So only concentrate on the changing terms. So x is not changing, so I'm not taking x into account. Even if you take x into account also, no changes is going to happen. So now declaring a variable and initializing a value to it will be taking 1 unit of time. Will be taking 1 unit of time. Now coming to this if condition, checking this condition will be taking 1 unit of time. We know very well either the body part of if will be executed or the body part of else will be executed. Let us go to else part because this have a highest time. This have a highest probability of taking more time. Okay, how much time this will take depends on the operation, addition operation, typecasting operation, division operation, multiplication. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 unit of time will be taken by this expression we have written. Now coming to the final one, written optimize. So when e underscore optimization underscore 2 of x comma n is taken as t of n, then e underscore optimization underscore 2 of x comma n minus 1 will be taken as t of n minus 1. What is the overall equation? Overall equation is t of n is equal to t of n minus 1, t of n minus 1 plus 2 plus 4, 6 plus 6. So this is the recurrence relation that we have. So take this recurrence relation and we will just place it afterwards. Now I have always recommended you to change the last constant term equal to 1. Okay, fine. Now look at this equation. This equation is similar to the previous equation. So solving this equation again we'll be getting the same answer, which is order of n. So this equation also will be taking order of n. So if you come to the conclusion, actually we had actually three methods: method 1, and we had a method 2, and we had a method 3. We also had method 3. Okay, so coming to the time complexity of the first method, it is order of n square. Okay, what is the time complexity of the second method? The time complexity of the second method is order of n. What is the time complexity of the third method? The time complexity of the third method is also order of n. If you look at the space complexity, for method 1 we have taken only one or constant unit of spaces. I'll just tell you here. So coming here to the first method, if you see, no extra variable is taken here. No extra, you can just see two variables, and both these variables are input variables, so I cannot consider it as an extra variable. So no extra variable is taken. Okay, so going to power function, also no extra functions. When extra we are not taking any extra variables. Here also in the factorial function also we are not taking any extra variables. So automatically the time complexity of the first method is order of 1. Space complexity, sorry, the space complexity of method 1 is order of 1. Coming to your second method, here we are taking only 3 new variables, whereas 3 unit of space. 3 unit of space means constant space, which is again order of 1. Coming to the third method, we are taking only one variable, which is again a constant unit of space. So we will be, what is constant unit of space? Whatever your n value is, even your n value can be 10 power 6, 10 power 12, anything it might be, but you are going to take only one variable. That is why constant. Whenever there is a change in the input, if your time or if your space does not change, then it is said to be constant. So here it is very clear that in all the three methods, whatever the input might be, but the number of unit of space does not change. So all the three methods comes under constant space complexity, which is order of 1. So coming here to method 1 is having space complexity order of 1. Method 2 is having space complexity order of 2, or order of 1. And method 3 is having time complexity order of 1. So in terms of space complexity, all the three methods are having same space complexity. So just let us ignore space complexity. Coming to time complexity, clearly method 1 is inefficient comparing method 2 and method 3. Okay, it is out of the game. Coming to method 2 and method 3, both are having same time complexity as well as same space complexity. So how we are going to prove which one is efficient? Already we said that multiplication is the main responsible for the time complexity. It is mainly responsible for the time complexity. We told that already method 2 is taking 8 multiplication when the n value is 4. It will be taking 10 multiplication if n value is 5. It will be taking 20 multiplication if the n value is 10, which means that if n is the input, then totally 2n multiplication will be taking place. But coming to method 3, if n value equal to 4, totally 4 multiplication took place. If n value is 20, 20 multiplication. If n is 100, 100 multiplication. So if input is n, then totally n multiplication will be taking place. So clearly because of that reason, we are going with method 3 as a efficient one. So method 3 will take the first efficiency level, method 2 will be taking the next efficiency level, and method 1 remains an inefficient solution, inefficient approach for this problem. Okay, so hope all the three methods are very clear for you. Okay, hope all the three methods are clear. Okay, so what we have done is, so far what we have done is, we will just have an overview of what we have done in terms of recursion so far. So in terms of recursion, we started with the types, we started with actually types of recursion, wherein we had 5 recursive methodology, like head recursion, tail recursion, indirect recursion, nested recursion, and tree recursion. We have seen 5 examples for this 5 types of recursion, and we have a clear understanding of what each and every type of recursion is all about. Okay, then coming to the problem section, we started with sum of n natural numbers. Then we have also seen about factorial of a number. Then we get into exponent of, then after getting into exponent, finally using all the 3 problems that we have seen so far. Exponent means power function, so factorial function, power function, summation function, all the 3 functions we have used those technique in Taylor series, wherein inside Taylor series we just does not stop with only one method. We saw 3 methodology, where method 1 is inefficient, so we went into method 1, method 2 for optimization, and method 3 for further optimization using Horner's rule. The third method is seen. Okay, optimization method 2, but generally it is method 3. Okay, and also we have calculated the time complexities of these 3 methodologies separately, and we come to a conclusion that method 1 is taking order of n square, method 2 is taking order of n time complexity, method 3 is taking order of n time complexity, wherein the space complexity of all the 3 methods are order of 1. With this comparison, then also with the number of multiplication taken, we concluded that method 3 is very efficient, then comes method 2, and then comes method 1. Okay, so this is what so far we have seen, and we are not going to stop with recursion. We'll be seeing few more problems in recursion also. Okay, fine. So thank you. This is it for this session. Thank you.